What happens when the business you built stops feeling like the business you want? When the money comes in, but it doesn't feel the same anymore? And when the things that used to motivate you, suddenly they don't move you at all? These moments can be terrifying, especially when you've worked so hard to create success. But what if they aren't breakdowns? What if they're invitations? Today's episode is about staying steady when life, business, or identity starts to shift, and how to keep growing your wealth, your peace, and your purpose through it. Because true sovereignty isn't about controlling change. It's about learning how to stay connected to yourself in the middle of it. Welcome back to Purpose Driven Millionaire. I'm Connie Grant, and this is the space where we talk about building wealth and legacy that feels true to your soul. It's not forced, not fake, but real. And if you're listening to this, there's a good chance you've hit a point in your life or business where things just feel different. Maybe what used to work isn't working anymore. Maybe clients have slowed down. Maybe you've been questioning what's next. Or maybe you're realizing you've been spending time and energy on a version of success that no longer fits. These times can feel confusing. The old structure doesn't hold the same way, but the new one, it hasn't formed yet. It's like you're standing between worlds, and that in-between space can bring up everything: doubt, fear, and even grief. I've lived through that space more times than I can count. And if you're in it right now, I want you to know this doesn't mean you failed. It usually means you're growing. Today's episode is a longer one because this topic deserves more space. It's one of the most important conversations I've shared here. So wherever you are, walking, driving, or sitting with a cup of coffee, or even lying in bed, take a deep breath. Because what we're about to explore could shift the way you see your entire journey. As you evolve, the way you show up in business and leadership and in relationship with money, it naturally shifts too. So change doesn't always show up gently. It can arrive in the form of a quiet nudge or a full disruption. And I've lived through both. There have been moments in my life when everything looked steady on the outside. The income was good. The schedule was full. People looked at me and thought, she's made it. But inside, I wasn't truly happy. The work that once lit me up, it started to feel heavy. The relationships that used to bring me comfort began to feel like walls instead of a home. And I've learned that when your soul stops expanding, life will start rearranging itself, sometimes gently and sometimes through complete disruption. And I've walked away from 2 successful careers, each lasting over 15 years. The first time, I thought success meant staying, being loyal to the path I started. But the truth was, I had outgrown it. My curiosity was pulling me somewhere new, even though I couldn't see where that road led. And I've also walked away from 2 marriages, one after 13 years and the other after 15. Leaving didn't mean there wasn't love. It meant I could feel that my soul was ready to evolve, and staying would have required me to silence that knowing. Those choices were never easy. There were nights I sat in my car after long days, crying quietly, wondering if I'd made a mistake. And there were mornings I'd wake up and feel both relief and grief in the same breath. Because endings aren't clean. They're sacred thresholds, the space between who you've been and who you're becoming. Every time I've chosen to step through one, I've learned that growth doesn't always look like expansion on the outside. Sometimes it looks like letting go. Sometimes it looks like sitting in uncertainty long enough for a new path to appear. But every time I chose truth over comfort, life responded with clarity, a new idea, a new connection, a deeper peace. Something always opened. And that's what sovereignty really is. It's the courage to trust your inner guidance, even when you don't yet have the full map. It's remembering that you are the map. And every time you follow what's real, life rearranges itself to meet you there. After every ending, there's a strange kind of quiet. You stepped away from what no longer fits, but you haven't yet arrived at what's next. It's that in between space where your old world is dissolving and the new one hasn't quite taken shape. And for a while, I tried to rush through that space. I'd fill it with projects, distractions, anything that made me feel productive. I told myself I was moving forward, but really I was avoiding stillness because stillness meant feeling everything. And when you've built a life around being capable and consistent, uncertainty can feel like failure. And I remember waking up in the morning after leaving my second marriage. Sunlight was coming through the window, and the house, it was just so quiet. And at that same moment, I felt both free, but I felt completely ungrounded. There was no one to check in with. There was no predictable rhythm, and it was just me. And that's when I realized sovereignty isn't built in the moments when everything is going right. It's built in the moments when everything familiar has fallen away and you choose to stay open instead of closing down. Because growth, it doesn't always feel expansive. Sometimes it feels like contraction at first, the same way a wave pulls back before it surges forward again. There are times when money slows down, clients pause, or your creativity just stops. And if you don't understand what's happening, it's really easy to panic. You start doubting yourself and you might push harder, do more, post more, sell more, trying to force momentum. But that never works because you can't push your way through a rebirth. When I experienced big transitions in my business, things were on hold on the outside. My audience wasn't growing as fast. Everything I did felt just that much harder. And I remember sitting at my desk one afternoon, just staring at my laptop. And I could just feel the tears welling up because I couldn't understand why my effort wasn't working. And that was the moment I listened to the guidance coming from inside of me. You're being called to grow differently now. And growth doesn't always mean more. Sometimes it means going deeper. And when you ignore that call, the universe will start slowing things down for you, not to punish you, but to give you space to listen. And here's the revelation. You can't evolve and cling to comfort at the same time. Something has to shift. Something has to give. Your business, your relationships, your offers, your energy. And when you allow that shift, even when it's uncomfortable, life always finds a new harmony. And I've seen it with clients again and again. The moment they stop chasing what's safe and start following what's true for them, things begin to move. Maybe not instantly, but undeniably. And opportunities, they line up. The right clients appear, not because they worked harder, but because they became available for something more aligned. These are the real seasons of expansion, when life asks you to let go of who you've been so you can grow into who you're becoming. It's tender, it's disorienting, but it's also where your next level of wealth, creativity, and peace live. When you're in that space between what was and what's becoming, it can feel like the ground is disappearing beneath your feet. Clients are on hold. Money slows down, sometimes even stops. The plan that once worked stops working. And that temptation to fix it, it comes fast, and you want to fix it now, to find a new strategy or a new offer, a new way to feel those things be certain again. And I know that feeling all too well. There was a stretch of time in my business when it felt like everything had paused. Emails weren't landing, offers weren't converting, clients just weren't showing up. And the momentum that I'd relied on seemed to just vanish. And I remember one day I was sitting at my kitchen table, coffee in my hand, and I was just trying to force ideas, but they just wouldn't come. I kept asking myself, what am I missing? But beneath that question was a deeper fear. What if I've lost it? What if I shouldn't have stepped away from what was certain? And that's when I realized I wasn't being tested in strategy. I was being tested in steadiness. Because sometimes the space where nothing seems to move is the exact space where everything is recalibrating. And in those moments, I learned to pause instead of panic. I'd go for a walk without my phone, just breathing and listening. I'd light some incense before starting my workday and take a few deep breaths to connect with my higher self. Not to make something happen, but to remember that I wasn't lost. I was being redirected. Staying steady didn't mean pretending everything was fine. It meant giving myself permission to slow down long enough to hear the truth underneath the confusion and turmoil. The truth was, I wasn't meant to keep doing things the way I had been. I had outgrown my old strategies. My old business and I needed to bring more of me into my new business, my voice, my depth, my spiritual connection. And the moment I allowed myself to do just that, things began to move again, but not overnight. Slowly, consistently, with alignment, it began to happen again. And here's what I've learned throughout that process. When you stay devoted to what's real for you, not what's popular, not what's supposed to work, but what's true, the storm starts to calm. And your nervous system, it settles down. And your decisions, they become clearer. And your work starts to flow again. It's not magic, it's resonance. Because when your actions match your truth, life reorganizes itself around that. The right people start to notice, and the right opportunities begin to find you. And the money that felt blocked starts to flow again, not because you pushed harder, but because you become still enough to receive. And that is the practice of sovereignty in motion, staying grounded in who you are, even when the outer world hasn't caught up yet. And mystically, I call this recalibrating your energy field. And as your new frequency filters down into your body, you are able to actualize results into your lived experience. And that steadiness, that quiet self-trust is what builds long-term wealth. It's not quick wins, and it's not constant reinvention. It's steadiness, faith. It's a daily devotion to your truth, your timing, and your energy. So if you're in that in-between space right now, wondering where the next client, idea, or opportunity is, I want you to hear this. You haven't lost your way. You're recalibrating. Something inside of you is being refined so that what comes next will be built to last. And that's the real work of the purpose-driven millionaire. Learning how to stay anchored in your energy when everything around you is shifting. A few years ago, I launched a program to over 10,000 real estate agents. On paper, it should have been a massive success. I had the audience, the experience, the expertise, the structure. I'd built the entire thing with the best strategy I knew: long hours, polished copy, and the right launch plan. But as the emails went out and the numbers rolled in, something became painfully clear. Not one person bought. 10,000 people, zero sales. I remember staring at my laptop screen, refreshing that page again and again, hoping the results would change, but they didn't. And I could just feel my chest tighten, and the tears, they just started flowing down my cheeks. And a part of me wanted to blame the timing or the tech or the algorithm, but deep down I knew the truth. My heart wasn't in it anymore. I had already moved out from that version of myself. Real estate had been a huge part of my life for years. It gave me stability, community, and recognition. But when I sat down to create that program, I just wasn't inspired. I was doing it because it felt safe, because it was familiar, because it was what I thought I should do. And that program, it wasn't born from alignment. It was born from obligation. And when you create from obligation, people can feel it. They may not know why, but the energy, it just doesn't land. And at the time, I was so embarrassed. I felt exposed like everyone could see my failure. But looking back, that launch was one of the most important moments of my journey. It was the moment I learned that no amount of strategy can compensate for a lack of alignment. And a few months later, I started something small, a membership with just 7 people and some light coaching on the side. No big strategy, no perfect system, just me showing up with what felt real and alive. And from that little circle, 2 members moved into private mentorship, one at $16.99 a month and another at $2,222. And around the same time, someone who had attended one of my free master classes reached out and stepped in at $12.99 a month. It wasn't about the numbers. It was about what they represented. That when I aligned my energy and led from my truth, people could feel it. Those 3 clients found me not because I pushed or convinced them, but because they could feel my energy. They could feel that I was back in my truth. And that moment, it changed everything for me. It showed me that recognition and revenue don't come from numbers. They come from energy. They come from being present. And they come from loving what you're offering enough that people can feel it before you even speak. And that's the power of alignment. It magnifies your impact effortlessly. You don't need to chase clients the hard way, and you don't need to prove something. It's actually the opposite. You just need to feel fully connected to what you're creating. And the clients who are meant for you, they feel it instantly. When you're evolving, it can feel like you're losing things, stability, certainty, sometimes even relationships. But what you're really doing, you're creating space. And there are times when we outgrow people, places, and even versions of ourselves. Sometimes that looks like walking away from something familiar, and sometimes it looks like staying, but relating to it differently. And if you're feeling that pull, don't rush to fix it. Just notice what feels heavy and what feels light, what drains you and what nourishes you. That awareness alone starts to shift everything. When I look back on all the times life shifted, the careers I released, the relationships I outgrew, the programs that fell flat, what I see now is that every ending was really a beginning. Each one brought me closer to the truth of who I am. Growth doesn't happen by holding tighter. It happens by loosening your grip on what no longer fits. Because every time you evolve, the way you show up in business, in relationships, and even in connection with money, it will need to evolve with you. It's not punishment, it's refinement. Because life will always invite you to build stronger foundations for what's next. And here's the paradox. The moments that feel like nothing is working are often the exact moments when everything is rearranging in your favor. And that pause, that stillness, that uncertainty, it's not the absence of growth. It's the restabilization of your foundation. And when you stay connected to what's true for you, for your peace, your devotion, your integrity, everything else begins to reorganize itself around that. And money starts flowing in alignment, and opportunities, they feel lighter. They're more abundant. You attract clients who value who you truly are, not just your products or services. And you begin to live in a way that feels prosperous, even before the numbers catch up. And that's what sovereignty really is. It's not control. It's not predictability. It's that unwavering confidence that no matter what shifts outside of you, you can trust yourself inside of it. You can trust your timing and you can trust your voice. And you can trust that when one path ends, another is already forming beneath your feet. And that doesn't mean you won't have human moments. You're still going to question things. You're still going to maybe cry in your car sometimes. And you're still going to wonder if you're doing enough. But the difference is you won't abandon yourself in those moments. You'll know how to sit in the uncertainty without losing your faith. And you'll know how to listen to your intuition instead of all that outside noise. And you'll know that alignment isn't something you go after, it's something you return to. So if you're standing in a time of change right now, if business feels uncertain, if money has slowed, if parts of your life feel like they're falling apart, I just want you to pause and breathe, because you're not breaking down. You're being realigned. And ask yourself, what's trying to emerge through me right now? What truth have I been ignoring because it feels inconvenient? And what would it look like to trust myself fully right now in this moment? These are the questions that open doors. These are the questions that bring peace back to your body and direction back to your business. And you don't have to rush the next chapter. You just have to keep showing up for what's real, with devotion, with honesty, and with courage. And from there, everything unfolds, because wealth expands where truth lives, and peace follows those who lead themselves with integrity. This is the sovereign path, the path of grounded power, the path of the purpose-driven millionaire. So let's bring in the mystical thread here, because energy is always at play beneath the surface of what we call life. Every moment, whether we realize it or not, we are transmitting a frequency, and that frequency shapes how people experience us, how opportunities respond to us, and how money flows to us. And when we move from alignment, that frequency is clean, it's pristine, grounded, magnetic. But when we move from fear or pressure, everything begins to tighten. And you can feel it. Your chest closes, your breath shortens, your shoulders tense as if you're bracing for something to go wrong. And you start making decisions from urgency instead of trust, sending that extra email, lowering the price, forcing the next step because you can't stand the silence in between. And that is resistance. It's the body's way of saying we're out of sync with truth. But the moment you come back to what's real, even if what's real is simply, I don't know what's next, your energy, it starts to soften. And your body exhales and your mind becomes clear. You stop trying to control outcomes and you start allowing life to respond to you. And that's when everything starts to move again. Energy never disappears. It just simply recalibrates. And the money that you thought you lost, the opportunities that didn't come through, they don't vanish. They shift. They're just waiting for you to align with the version of you that can hold that next level of wealth. And when you choose integrity over urgency, your field strengthens, it expands. And when you choose devotion over doubt, your magnetism, it amplifies. And when you stay in truth, even when it means slowing down, even when it means walking away, you create space for the energy around you to recalibrate at a higher level. And that's when the new clients appear, seemingly out of nowhere. And that's when a conversation you had 2 months ago turns into an unexpected opportunity. And that's when a sudden sense of peace, it replaces the panic you've been feeling. Because alignment doesn't change what you attract. It changes what you allow. It's like cleaning the lens through which you see your life. You stop seeing lack and you start seeing possibility. You stop chasing money and you start embodying wealth. And that shift changes everything. So if you've been feeling resistance lately, maybe clients have slowed or income feels inconsistent or you can't find your flow, start by checking in with your energy, not your strategy. And I want you to ask yourself, where am I pushing to try and get ahead? Where am I gripping to control outcomes? And where have I abandoned what's true for me by trying to go back to what feels safe? And then breathe, return to your truth. And the moment your energy relaxes back into alignment, the world starts to respond differently. Wealth begins to move again, not because you're forcing it, because you're finally a clear match for it. And this is the mystical law of energy in motion. What is aligned expands. What is forced, it collapses. And when you choose alignment, when you choose truth, everything you thought you were chasing begins to find you. Now that we've talked about energy, I just want to bring it all home. I want to bring it into your body, into your life, into the way you move through this week. Because all the understanding in the world, it doesn't create change unless it's lived. In other words, it's time to take action. So wherever you are right now, sitting at your desk, driving, walking, maybe lying in bed, I just want you to take a slow breath in, let it fill your belly, and as you exhale, allow your body to relax a little. You don't need to fix anything in this moment. You're simply returning to yourself. And start with the body. Bring your awareness to your spine, the length of it, the way it holds you upright. And this is where your sense of safety lives. And say these words to yourself. I am safe to grow. I am safe to evolve. And feel how that shifts your posture, even slightly. And then next, I want you to move up to your heart and notice what's there. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's tension, maybe it's a little bit of both. Whatever you find, just breathe into it. The heart is where alignment speaks first. And you'll know what's right for you, not because it sounds logical, but because it feels lighter. And I want you to ask yourself, what feels open for me right now? What wants more attention? And just let those answers come forward without judgment. And now bring your awareness to your vision, your inner sight. What does it look like when you're living in alignment? How do you feel when money flows easily, when your work feels alive, when your relationships feel like home? See it, feel it, anchor it in your body. This is what integration looks like, turning ideas into energy and energy into action. So here's your invitation for the week ahead. Before you make any decision, big or small, pause for one breath. Ask, am I doing this from my truth or from fear? And your body will tell you. Truth feels open, fear feels tight. Each morning, before touching your phone, place a hand on your heart and just whisper, show me what opportunities are ready to unfold today. This keeps you connected to flow rather than forcing outcomes. And when you notice resistance creeping in, the overthinking, the doubt, the urge to fix everything, just stop and relax your body. Because resistance doesn't mean you're off track. It's just an invitation to realign. And this is the practice of embodied sovereignty. It's not about controlling life, but allowing it to move through you, trusting that when you stay true to yourself, everything else will find its rightful place. And you don't have to do more. You just have to be more of yourself. So take one last breath with me now. Inhale possibility and just exhale, letting go. You are aligned. You are safe to expand. And you are already on your way. And so as we close today, I want you to remember this. Change doesn't mean you're losing your way. It means you're being guided toward your next level of truth, your next level of wealth, your next level of expansion. And when the path gets quiet, when things slow down, when what once worked no longer feels right, it's not punishment, it's preparation. It's you recalibrate because you're being asked to expand your capacity for peace, for purpose, and for wealth. Because sovereignty isn't built in comfort. It's built in those moments when you keep choosing alignment over approval, truth over strategy, and faith over fear. You are not returning to the beginning. You are stepping into a higher octave of who you've always been, the one who can hold more light, more wealth, more truth. And let that be enough for today. And if this episode spoke to you, if you felt something shift from your deeper knowing, I'd love to hear from you. You can come find me at conniegrant.com. It's my new digital home, a space for deeper conversations, guided activations, and the purpose-driven millionaire path. And if you're ready to walk beside others who are building from truth, not pressure, I invite you to step inside Sanctuary 33. It's a private circle devoted to wealth, sovereignty, and legacy. But for now, take one more breath, feel your feet on the ground, and state these truths to yourself. I am safe to grow. I am safe to evolve. I am sovereign. Until next time, lead with truth, move with devotion, and let your life be the conduit that wealth responds to.